This is really funny. I'm trying to find something like we have a soccer practice I'm running to, and I have like these big yellow poles that that the soccer players run through when they do drills and they stick into the ground. So I'm going out and I'm going in, and we have a shed in the backyard. It's like it's not a closed shed. It's like 3-sided shed, and so it's more like a garage you can go into. And I throw a lot of the soccer equipment in there. So I go in there and I'm picking out this thing, and I hear grrr, like really loud. And I'm thinking to myself, our dog, I just left our dog inside. I would have sworn it was our dog. And we have like our backyard is fenced in. So I'm like, I start to slowly move backwards, and then I hear, and I hear rustling, and I walk back out of the shed. Now I'm looking, and I hear louder coming out of the shed, and I just run and I take off into the house.
Wolf.
Coyote, right?
I have no idea.
Because I had a coyote encounter a few months ago, and it was like at 2 in the morning. I got home late from work, and actually 2 a.m. is sometimes early. But
right.
All of a sudden I heard this noise, and I knew it wasn't a dog. It sounded like a freaking hound, and I knew there were coyotes. There's always coyote sightings around Fairfield County, Connecticut, and I was like, okay, just stay calm, And then it just sounded like, and I was like, don't do anything abrupt. And then I heard the growl again, and I took off sprinting towards my front door, like in this.
Yeah, I'm afraid to go back outside. I'm afraid to go back into this thing. I don't know what to do. Like, where do I go from here? Do I call
Call the animal? Call your town.
Animal patrol people?
Yeah.
Well, you can't call them if you don't know what it is. They're going to ask you what it is.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure you're not the only person that's heard it, because like the next day it was.
This thing is in my shed. Like there was no question that it was in the shed.
Was it a growling or a hissing?
It was a growling and then a rustling of something big, like of a substantial animal. Like you felt like the shed is big. The shed's like 10 foot by 10 foot.
It's probably a coyote.
Dark.
It's a puma. It's a big puma.
It's
possibly a Griffith.
Bigfoot. Beck found Bigfoot.
I was thinking of a Griffith or a Chupacabra.
It's a Yeti. It's a big Yeti.
But yeah, the next day I remember I saw in the paper that there was like all these coyote calls, and they even has like a fake Twitter account too. They still haven't caught it.
Well, I remember when the Coyotes. Oh, I invited Kevin Allen. He's going to join us. I remember when the Coyotes were leaving Phoenix. I remember doing a Google search one time for Coyotes leaving Phoenix, and you get like all these pictures of coyotes actually in people's yards.
Right.
Like in Phoenix, like underneath their swing sets and stuff like that. You do Google search Coyotes leaving Phoenix. That's what you get.
Not that it's an uncommon occurrence in like suburbs to have like deer, sightings of deer.
Yeah, deer don't want to.
But I live in the city in Buffalo, and near a rather large park. But there's a rather famous cemetery, Forest Lawn Cemetery, that I live right next to. A couple former U.S. president is buried there, and it's right dead set in the middle of the city. So you wouldn't expect deer to be like in this little cemetery. It's not little, but it's in the cemetery. And I'm walking through. This is a park that I walk through when, like, during the summer, just to get some exercise. 9 o'clock in the morning, all of a sudden, basically a 12-point buck
Nice.
comes out from behind this big obelisk, and I'm like, whoa. And I'm, luckily I didn't have my shotgun with me, and I don't usually shoot deer, but I was basically for self-protection. I stepped behind a big tombstone because this thing was coming at me. Deer
are a huge problem. And I
got chased by a geese once across the ESPN parking lot. I had a geese chase me. Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
People use geese as like watch geese.
You guys don't want to take me down in animal stories. I can beat you all. I've got some animal stories that'll just blow your socks off. This was just the latest, but I have some good ones. Yeah. I was chased by.
You need to actually figure out what the animal is, or you're going to have the worst phone call of your life.
Yeah. I know.
Real quick from our you guys are all familiar with the white SUV at the Barclays Center, right?
Yeah.
Yes, we talked about it.
So we talked about.
I've heard of it, Dan.
Yes, well, we talked today on the HockeyBuzz podcast. We talked today that we haven't been able to find the kid line, which is Ryan Strome, Brock Nelson, and Anders Lee, because potentially they've been abducted by the white van in the corner.
Oh my God! Yeah, that's like
I'll be here all week. Actually, that was Noel had that job. Noel had that job.
Indescript white car, right? That's always an indescript white truck is always a problem.
Is AC Cowlings driving that white SUV?
All right, let's.
We used to tour around in a white van and
I
in
believe
van,
that.
and oh my gosh, it was like that would you always you realize when you pull up to ask directions from anybody and you're in just a big 15-passenger white van, they look at you like you're the devil, like so we were a nice enough band, we had our equipment in the back and just 4 of us traveling around in a big white 15-passenger van.
If
Well,
you
for
see
those
something, say something.
Yeah,
for those who were born after 1994, A.C. Collins was the guy that drove O.J. Simpson around. So there you go.
Yeah, very good. I want to throw this out too before we get started. I saw Goosebumps, the movie. Which is, I know that's not something you guys are probably ever going to see.
I have utter disdain for Jack Black, so.
Okay, you don't have children. It was really good. Just throw it out there. It was one of those movies that you know that our kids will like we watch Ghostbusters nowadays. Our kids will be watching Goosebumps as adults and be like, because it was really good.
Not even on my radar, but I heard Bridge of Spies is very good, and I'm very interested in seeing Spectre. There are 2 movies that I'd rather see than the Star Wars movie.
Right.
Oh, here we go again.
Oh boy. All right, let's get
There's
started.
always that guy.
November 3rd, right?
You can do it.
It's Election Day in the United States of America.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes, you can vote out. You can vote out Kate Murray today.
I voted. All right, so we got echoes going on a little bit, but not too bad.
No,
I think we're too bad. So this is my Shure, by the way, sends me another microphone, so I got to check this microphone out, and I absolutely love this microphone. This is like...
You don't like the other one? What happened to the other one?
I like the other one, but this one is just...
This thing's awesome. It looks like Edward R. Murrow.
Yeah, this is the Elvis microphone. It was the 557 Shure. They just released a bunch of them, like 5,000 of them. That's all they're doing is a release.
This looks like the gold. This looks like the golden EIB microphone of Rush Limbaugh.
Oh, it does. Yes, yours does for sure. But this one, this is amazing. I love this microphone. So it's kind of cool. So now I got to fix my backdrop because you can see everything behind me now because I don't have that bar coming through here. But anyway, they'll start the show November 3rd. Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, November 3rd, 2015.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Dan Petru.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday from 1. I feel like I'm really like a DJ with this microphone. Every Monday through Friday from 1 o'clock. At 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. We're all across this fine nation of ours and anywhere you are in the world because this is the internet after all. We're going to start today with some fun, disciplinary stuff. And Dustin Bufflin.
That's always fun.
Always fun to start in disciplinary stuff. Dustin Bufflin, Brendan Gallagher. Dan doesn't necessarily agree with this situation.
I don't agree with it either, but I guess there's special dispensation when you hit a rat, and that's apparently what's going on here. Because
that shouldn't matter.
I know, but I'm just being facetious. But what I'm saying here is, Bufflin has been warned already. I think once or twice this year, and I mean he had a hit against St. Louis against Jay Bouwmeester that was pretty sketchy, and apparently the public safety or player safety notified him that you better cool it. And then this thing came along, and everybody was saying at least a game, at least 2 games.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Well, there was the Corey Perry hit, there was the Bouwmeester hit, there was the Pominville hit,
Right.
and there was the play against Gallagher, and that's just this season. Like, here's my problem, not necessarily, well, we'll get to Bufflin in a second, but my problem with the league is, once again, they're reacting instead of being proactive. They're a reactive league and not a proactive league. And intent needs to matter, and it's always the result of the play. I don't care that the player didn't get injured. That shouldn't matter. It should be the player's intent. If I try, in the court of law, if I try and hurt someone, whether I'm successful or not, I'm still going to be punished. And that's what the league needs to do here, and that's where I think they're really missing the boat.
Yeah, I mean, he really went up like a WWE uppercut.
So let's watch
that was
Patrick
ridiculous,
Burke.
like just
Patrick
way
Burke
over the top.
explain this to us. Let's let Patrick Burke explain this to us here. So mute yourselves, guys, for a second, and I will go to this. We'll go to the video. Here we go. Okay, hold on. Freezing. Stopping. Pausing.
Well, I'll fill while you're queuing up the video. The only thing I can say is this decision is to me is another example of the rules apply to the players, but not the superstars. This is to me, this is like Alex Ovechkin. Bufflin's the best player or the most prominent player on the Jets, and he doesn't get penalized.
Okay, so we're joined by Kevin, but we're going to first do a real quick, we're going to watch Patrick Burke's explanation of this, Kevin, as you join us here. Here we go. And see, because we have some issues with this today, so let's jump on here, and we're going to watch Patrick work. Here we go. Ready? And begin. I will get this. Start this now. And here we go. Sorry. And everybody.
Sunday night in Montreal, Winnipeg defenseman Dustin Byfuglien was assessed a minor penalty for elbowing Montreal forward Brendan Gallagher. After review of the video and a hearing with Byfuglien, the Department of Player Safety has determined there will be no supplemental discipline on this play. As the video shows, after teammate Jeff Petrie chips the puck up ice, Gallagher becomes engaged with Jets defenseman Tobias Enstrom. With the referee signaling for a delayed penalty against Gallagher, Byfuglien and Gallagher race for the puck. Byfuglien closes quickly and is able to beat Gallagher to the loose puck. As he chips the puck past Gallagher and back up ice, both players brace for contact. Focused on the puck, Gallagher does not begin to brace himself until the last moment. He then attempts to stand upright and turns his head slightly to prepare for the collision. Byfuglien, with an eye on both Gallagher and the puck, braces himself much earlier for contact, then leans hard into the significantly smaller Gallagher, sending him spiraling to the ice. After speaking with Byfuglien on the hearing, we largely accept his explanation of the incident.
Largely.
He chips the puck past Gallagher, then leans into contact, in part to pursue an offensive chance up ice. After bracing for contact, he drives through the oncoming player, making significant hip contact with Gallagher's hands, then subsequent contact with Gallagher's upper body and head. The force of contact through Gallagher's arms by the significantly larger Byfuglien spins Gallagher's entire body into the air, in a manner consistent with a full body hit. In addition, Byfuglien keeps his elbow tucked and his skates on the ice through contact. After a thorough review of the video, it is our determination that while there is some head contact on this play, this is a collision where the head is not the main point of contact. It is important to note that while Byfuglien is a repeat offender under the collective bargaining agreement, that history only comes into play once it has been determined that supplemental discipline is necessary. The hit itself is evaluated on its own merit.
Okay, so
First of all, I can't. By that voice, I can't tell that guy is related to Brian Burke.
I can.
Yeah.
I'm being sarcastic, of course.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Okay. Yeah.
Gotcha. No, he's definitely. I mean, it's just the way he talks is so crazy similar. But yeah. So Dan's already said you don't agree with this call at all. And I'm kind of with Dan on this one. I have to say. I mean, I don't think it's a big suspension, but
No, I don't either.
I think that to me, he doesn't talk about that. He definitely throws his elbow. I mean, it's like that's what seems to be ignored. Yeah, his arm's down to the side, but he does throw his elbow. Russ, you're muted.
It's the best he's ever sounded.
But go ahead, Russ.
I was going to say, how could his elbow be tucked up there?
Right, well, it's tucked when he hit him, but he did follow through with it. I mean, he did bring it up.
Yeah. I completely side with the NHL on this. Like, I watched that. That was a hockey play. He was playing the puck. He looked up. He was about to collide, and he did what you do in that situation, which is you try to make them feel most of the pain. And he clearly didn't go into that play thinking he was going to hit him in the head. He went to make a play, and the circumstances put him in there. And was he a little high? Yeah, a little high, but there was no intent there to strike her the head. It was just a hockey play in a big collision, and I think the player has the right to do what he would do to protect himself. And in that situation, you're going to lean into the hit. And in his case, he's a bigger guy, and it got him in the head. But
Kevin, I'm always conspiratorial minded. Maybe that's my downfall. But the thing is, if that was Matt Martin of the New York Islanders, that would be a 3-game suspension.
Absolutely.
I'm convinced with the NHL is they will give cut a little more slack to guys who I would categorize as star players than non-star players. Ovechkin's been the example over the last couple of years. In this instance, Byfuglien I think is one of the more prominent guys on the Winnipeg Jets. But he has had a few incidents before you were on the show. We were just talking about it against Bouwmeester, against Corey Perry, and there was another one against Jason Pominville, where he's he's a big guy, 265 pounds, and that's something that it's an advantage to him to throw his weight around. But he's got to be a little more careful too, because little shrimps like Gallagher. I mean,
that's really not part of the rule. The rule doesn't say, hey, if you're a big guy, you got to be careful. My wife used to be a high school coach in soccer, and it drove her crazy when her players would get a whistle because they were big. She always would say, it's not a foul to be big, and in that case, his size did get in the way. But let's look at this. Compare this to the Stone hit, which to me was a clear-cut, suspendable act. It was clear that he targeted the head, and this to me is happenstance, circumstance. He didn't go into that play a second before even thinking, I'm going to knock this guy in the head. He's thinking, I'm going to play this puck. And then when he got there and the collision was inevitable, he just did what players do, which is you take whatever action you can take to make it easier on you and more painful for your opponent.
But I would argue, we have something going on right now this week, this weekend. Chris Pronger is going to be put into the Hall of Fame, right? And I'm a huge Pronger fan. No question should be going into the Hall of Fame. Absolutely a winner wherever he went. He went to the Stanley Cup Finals with 4 teams, right? So it's just a crazy, interesting player. And yet, I thought in his career was often punished by the fact he was bigger than other players. I think there were a lot of times when Chris Pronger made some dirty hits, but there were also times when it was the fact that he was just bigger.
Yeah, I've always was troubled by the whole Pronger situation, but I refuse to ever be a hypocrite. You never saw me criticize for the way the Pronger played, because for this reason, he was exalted always for playing on the edge of the rule book. That's part of who he was. That's why he was celebrated. You never knew quite what he was going to do. And then every time that he would go over the line, and then everybody act as if he was a common criminal. Now you can't have it both ways.
Right.
I'm troubled when guys that play on the edge go way over the line, but I always felt that Pronger's indiscretions were, just a little over the line. I know that sounds ridiculous, but.
But Bufflin continues to go over that line. That play against Corey Perry was not a hockey play. It was reminiscent of Dale Hunter. And if Perry was against the boards, it would have been a lot worse. The play on Pominville was appalling.
Yeah, that was it. But, we're not,
It's hard for me to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Well, I can understand your position, but if you commit 2 criminal acts, if you rob 2 banks, and then you get involved in some other act that isn't nearly as severe, you don't pay a more severe price for that. I don't think so.
I think guys are getting better at disguising their dirtiness, and I think they're fooling Patrick Burke at times and getting the message across. And there are guys that are getting away with it because of the video system.
It feels to me that and I'm not disagreeing with you, Russ, there, and I'm kind of on the fence on this one. I'm kind of between Kevin and Dan, I'd say, but it feels to me that the difference between Patrick Burke and Brendan Shanahan so far has been Patrick seems much more technical about exactly what's happening, where Shanahan threw a lot more of just the natural hockey sense of this guy was pissed off and was going to try to hurt somebody.
Intent. The intent was used as.
Plus, it's not Burke's call.
It's Stefan Patel.
Yeah, he's just making the announcement, right? So.
Right.
But the Ronaldo thing to me was crazy. That was an intent, a complete intent to hurt a player, right? And it was an offensive zone. It was his own offensive zone. He's rushing a guy who was already covered, and maybe he didn't. And I thought he went and hit him in the head. He gave him a concussion as well. So tough to say. The concussion, that yet no suspension for that, right? So.
Well, I think this really brings home, what we say about these situations. Even with the use of replay and slowing things down, it's such a difficult decision. I'm always amazed that, the 5 of us watch a lot of hockey, and we all have differing opinions, but. Yeah. We don't want lawlessness in the game, and we all watch that, and we can't make up our mind. Dan and I are on opposite poles on this. Like I just think that's I'm actually surprised that we're even debating it, just because I think it was just sort of a hockey play. But it doesn't mean it's just so hard to in these situations, on the ones where Gallagher got up and ended clearly. The hit was a little high, but I would argue that was just part of the way that you play. I mean, these are the kind of head hits that I think you'll never be able to legislate out of the game. Yeah.
No, I think I don't know if you can either. And is a guy, like you said, should guys be elated because they're better players, but they're dirty? If a dirty player who actually can score, like Pronger, is okay. A dirty player,
Well, I don't know that we have anybody like that. Right before Halloween, we were going to attempt to play, and I took it when you said scary players, as guys that are physical. And there were so many guys in the history of hockey that were so intimidating to play against. I mean, I'm talking about Probert, Chelios, Gordie Howe, Ted Lindsay, Chris Pronger, Link Getz. Just a lot of ferocious guys. I don't think we have those guys anymore. Like, name me one guy now that you think about, like, you go, wow, I wouldn't want to face him. We don't really have those guys anymore.
Lucic a couple of years ago, but I think that aspect.
But that's fair, Mike. I think I'd put him on a list of he's hard to play against. But there are a lot of guys, I guess, that are hard to play against, but they're nothing quite as ferocious as in the old days when guys were a lot dirtier than they are now.
Yeah.
Those guys would also drop the gloves too if they were challenged. We have a lot of guys now that love to run people and then not pay the piper.
Well, no, and I think what's going on now is there's a lot more sort of chicanery and cheap shottiness than fights. I mean, last night between Dallas and Toronto was a perfect example. Late in the third period, Jamie Benn and Nazem Kadri are at the face-off. Kadri apparently was getting underneath Ben's skin, and Ben poleaxed him with his stick right between the legs, and then sucker punched him right in the face. It's like, because Kadri is an annoying guy to play against, but it's not dropping the gloves anymore. It's that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, that's for sure. I don't know if you guys saw this or not. It's kind of interesting. Oh man, I don't know what the heck's going on there.
I'll try logging off. I'll come back.
Yeah, see what happens. Maybe if you use your headphones, Russ, that would be good if you have them.
Yeah, they've been on.
Okay, that's weird.
It's not the headphones, Zach. It's just what we're using.
Just us, right?
Yeah.
All right, so the Blackhawks, their logo I've long felt is the greatest logo in hockey. I'm a big fan of the Chicago Blackhawks logo, and yet it is incredibly controversial. Right. So let's see. We'll get Kevin with headphones too, to see if that helps. And everybody has headphones now. It's doing okay. It sounds like no echoes, right?
No echo.
Okay, maybe that's the key. All right, so the Blackhawks logo forever has been extremely, it's funny. It's not just the Blackhawks, right? Don't other teams use the same Indian head logo? A couple college teams, maybe, Russ. A couple.
North Dakota used to.
North Dakota uses them, correct?
So yeah.
Right. So, a couple days ago, online, someone came up with what they thought was a version of the Blackhawks logo that has actually gone pretty viral. I don't know if you guys have seen this or not.
No.
But it's kind of interesting, and they claim that this is less controversial, and it's this. Here's the logo right here.
Oh, come on. Honestly, I mean, this is not the Redskins. This is not, the Blackhawk is not a degrading title.
Yep.
I mean, I don't get the controversy here.
Yeah, I don't know. It is controversial though, and there's a lot of people who like this.
Who's complaining?
There's always groups complaining, Russ. I don't know who is complaining exactly right now, but
I mean, I understand if Indian organizations or tribes are upset because Chief Wahoo of the Cleveland Indians, the smiling Indian, is offensive. But I just don't think that the Blackhawks emblem is offensive in any way. But I'm not Native American, so maybe I can't. My opinion doesn't count.
Kevin, any thoughts on this? We don't hear you, Kev. Sorry. You may have to reconfigure your microphone. There we go. We got you now. We got you. We hear you now.
Yep.
We heard you at the end there, I think, with your headphones still on, but we got you.
Okay. My thought is on this is that I agree with Mike with regard to the Blackhawk. It honors the tribe as opposed to poking fun at it or satirizing it like the Redskins. And it happened here at the university that I went to, Eastern Michigan University, where we used to be the Eastern Michigan Hurons, which honored a local tribe. Mm-hmm. And the tribe actually said they were proud that the university saluted its tribe, but they changed it to Eagles nonetheless. And it was really bothersome to many of us who are graduates of that university. However, saying all that, I think Mike did hit the nail on the head when he said, I'm not Native American and maybe I'm not qualified to discuss that. If somebody is offended about it, we can't legislate their feelings on it.
Right.
Well, here's the story. The story is that there was a unit named for Saucon Fox, the American Indian leader who fought against the U.S. government in the War of 1812 and 1832, and it's meant to be in memoriam for him. It's a nice thing. They're saying the guy was, and that's why they created this in 1926, because it was to honor this guy.
I never did.
Yeah, so that's how I feel about it. On the other hand, again, if there are Native Americans out there who are insulted by this, that's their prerogative, and they'll just have to decide, how to deal with it. But I don't think it's anything like the Redskins.
No, I mean the Redskins is clearly a derogatory.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. We can't hear you, man. We can't hear you.
And the Blackhawk division was actually a division in the Army, and that's what the owner named the Blackhawks after, is a division of the U.S. Army.
Right, that I had heard before. That's interesting. All right, so I'm going to also get headphones for a second right here, because I'm going to try to see if I can we're going to figure this thing out eventually, guys. It's only 370 shows in, so I'm
the only one who doesn't have headphones because I don't have headphones.
Right.
Well, there's no echo right now.
Yeah.
Right now we're good. Really sounding pretty good. I'm going to put my headphone on just to see if that helps at all. So there we go. All right. So yes, let's move. Dan Petru has joined the call. We got you.
You guys got me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
All right, good.
All right. So far no echo. All right. Thanks. Guys. I think we're doing well. Except I'm hearing a ringing, but that's okay. That's Kevin.
Yeah, that's me.
That's not a problem.
There's always a ringing in my head.
Yeah, that ringing is just in your head. Okay.
Same with Russ, but that's because he's a Mets fan.
We got to address this Patrick Kane situation because it seems to be coming to an end. And thankfully, and it was kind of bizarre that it hadn't been talked about for such a long time. I felt, it was really a definite lack of Patrick Kane stuff for a while there.
Well, it broke on the weekend when the Buffalo News reported that there wasn't going to be any pursuit by Erie County in terms of charges on him, and then this morning the Buffalo News reported that the accuser is not going to take part in it. So it sounds like it's over with. It doesn't even sound with that kind of indication. It doesn't even sound like there's going to be any kind of civil proceedings as well, because if she's saying I'm not pursuing it, then that means criminally and civilly.
Yeah, so it seems like this is it, I guess.
You don't know for sure. Maybe down the line, or unless there was some sort of settlement under the table that we don't know about. But it sounds like this is over with.
Now, I talked to a player yesterday about this because I was curious about what the feeling was about him playing still, and he wouldn't go on the record, of course. But just what the feeling was, and there's a lot of players were pretty upset about it, thinking because if it happens, they were just what a terrible thing. But there was also players who thought that it was, in a way, a really good warning shot to a lot of players in the NHL to get their acts together. Mm-hmm. That this is like that, that although nothing happened here, it obviously, there's a lot of irresponsibility going on, and because they're kids, these are young, wealthy kids. And they are going to do stupid things, and this is a bit of they have a feeling like they're undefeatable, or they're whatever the word is there.
Invincible.
Invincible. Thank you very much, Dan. But yeah, invincible, and they're not. And the one player I talked to yesterday said, I think that's going to be good for a lot of the younger players to see that if Patrick Kane can go through something like this, anybody can go through something like this. Like, here's a star who did something stupid or didn't do something stupid, or regardless of whether he did something stupid or not, it's definitely a situation where you have, Mike, you should get your headphones probably. It's probably because when you mute yourself, the echo does disappear. But here's a player, regardless of what happens to him, this is definitely a warning shot. This is not going to go unnoticed, throughout the league. And he thinks that the players are actually going to be more responsible. Russ, you think? Your thoughts?
Well, you would hope. I mean, again, I'm reading a quote that says the woman told authorities that the high-profile investigation caused tremendous stress for her and her family, and that's why she's dropping out. And that's always the worry. On the other side, that's what happens. And it's easy to just say, hey, Patrick Kane's off the hook, hockey season's back on, let's go. But this is going to affect her for a very long time.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, and there's no question, and it's going to affect a lot of people, and like I said, the toughest thing for me was going through with just telling my daughter about this. Well, I don't know, so do I tell her now that Patrick Kane is? What do you do? Do you say, oh, Patrick Kane, he's fine, he didn't do anything?
Something happened. He definitely made some poor decisions. He didn't do it.
It's hard to talk about because no one knows what happens. I mean, even you just made.
But I know a lot of people. It's very hard to talk about. We won't stay on it very long. But I think
this is what I would say about it. Like, it's hard to say anything significant out of this because you have no idea what happened.
Right.
However, here's what we do know. We know that the league would have suspended Kane if they felt there was. And I'm not talking about evidence to convict him. I'm talking about if there were evidence, if they had any evidence that he had. Been involved in any wrongdoing, given the climate today, they would have suspended him. So we know that. I'm 100% confident of that. They would have suspended him. They were, they looked at it. If you look at the what happened with the Voynov, they didn't even wait till he was charged. Just by the police report and what occurred at the hospital, they suspended Voynov. They would have suspended Kane, I'm sure of that, had they had any evidence. So what that says was, that's why it was so hard for the police, and the rape cases are difficult. So, to me, what this says to players is, and maybe this is what you were saying, Dan, you can't put yourself in a position where, almost where you're, in a drinking situation and you're going to end up alone with a woman that you barely know.
Right.
I mean, I think this is all it says. I'm not saying I don't know what happened. So.
Right. We don't know what happened, but this says.
But you just have to be careful.
Well, yeah, and because if nothing happened, if there's two things, something happened or nothing happened, right? So if nothing happened at all, then this is a case where players need to be more careful because they're targets.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Go the opposite direction. Yeah, we can hear you, Mike. That's good.
Okay. Well, I mean, the thing is, and I'm not going to go into the particulars of the case, but Patrick Kane is a veteran. He's a guy who's 26 years old.
Yeah.
He shouldn't be out on a summer night in the area of the city of Buffalo where 18 and 19-year-olds are well known to be going. He should be past that. But I'm not trying to be puritanical here, but he should know, and he's had troubles before. I mean, there was an incident at a college a few years ago where he was partying with a bunch of guys at their dorm. I mean, come on.
But that is stopped. What's interesting, Mike, about that? I talked to an NHL team a while ago because remember in Philadelphia there was a bunch of issues with Mike Richards' pictures showing up in from the University of Pennsylvania at fraternity parties at Temple University, who almost should have beaten Notre Dame last weekend. Things like that. Sorry, I went to Temple, and I'm not. There's my one moment of being a college football fan. But yeah, there were incidents, and those have slowed down. Like the whole the Instagram, Facebook type pictures that used to show up everywhere. Players have gotten smart to that. It took them longer than it should have, but they've gotten smart to it, I think.
But I also think the players just need to be reeled in and reminded a little bit of their actions off the ice, because it's not just this situation. The O'Reilly case is a little disturbing. Jarrett Stahl. We don't really know what Mike Richards has done yet, but it's just a little, you just got to reel him in a little bit.
the problem with that is that, if you watch the Verizon commercial where the guy says he's trying to buy a phone and the woman says just to give him a deal, and he goes, well, I don't want a special deal, and he says, well, everybody gets a special deal, and the and the woman said, he's the guy over there, and he goes, well, he's part of everybody. Well, this is a society problem, so players are going to have it. Like, we're going to have drug issues, we're going to have alleged rape issues. It's just going to happen because we're part of everybody.
There have been less situations. If you remember, after their Cup win in 2011, Brad Marchand and Tyler Seguin, partying at Foxwoods. There's been less of that. I think more NHL players are more conscious of the pitfalls of social media, but I also think that they have to be concerned about what we were talking about before, about being targets. And I'm not saying Patrick Kane did this or Patrick Kane didn't do this, but he got himself in trouble because of he made himself vulnerable in a particular situation, and players got to be careful of that. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, I'll just ask the question, do we think Patrick Kane learned from this? And I'm going to say I don't think he did.
Well, that's a tough one to answer, right?
Yeah, we can't. Yeah, that's hard to answer. We don't know.
Here's another thing we can say. At that press conference at Notre Dame that turned out to be where they, thanked the reporters for their questions, but really couldn't answer anything. That it was asked of Patrick whether or not he was going to quit drinking and whether he had a drinking problem. Mm-hmm. I think it's fair to ask Patrick that now.
Yeah,
I think so too.
It is.
At the time, he wouldn't answer it, right? He didn't answer it.
Well, he couldn't answer. I mean, anybody who hangs out with attorneys or has friends with attorneys know his attorney surely said, "Don't say anything." I mean,
right.
You can't say anything.
Right. All right, I want to move on to something more happier. I want to talk about Jamie Benn for a second because I read a really good article on Sportsnet by I don't know if you guys saw Christina Rutherford. Christina Rutherford for Sportsnet did a really good article on Jamie Benn and how the hell Jamie Benn has grown into a leading NHL scorer, because it just doesn't seem like, when you think about it, this seems, with all the superstars we have out there right now, how is Seguin is way more talented, way more highly talented than him. Ovechkin, Crosby, the rest. I got him. Crosby, Ovechkin, the rest, Tavares, and yet here's Jamie Benn, who, her article is really funny because Jamie Benn, it starts off with he was 5'3" in the 10th grade. Jamie Benn, like, he grew very late. Like, this is a guy who really came out of nowhere. He's 6'3" now, but he was 5'3", when he was in 10th grade. What is it about Jamie Benn, Kevin? You see him more than we do because you're out in the Western Conference. What is it? Why is this guy the leading scorer in the NHL, and how is that possible?
Well, I mean, he's a very talented guy. I don't think people give him enough credit for being as talented as he is. And, he's a bigger guy, and he finds space, and finally he's got a tremendous center with him. So he's got the right person playing with him, and it's kind of all come together. But I think he's far more talented than everybody realizes. That's the whole thing. I think people just saw him as a very good player, and I think he's beyond that. He's an opportunistic scorer, to be sure. He's got tremendous hands, and he's with the right kind of team in the right center now. Usually, it's opportunity that creates it, and when you get to that level, and he now has the right opportunity. And I just yesterday I had Bob McKenzie on as a guest on my podcast, and one of the questions is, can you trust the Dallas Stars? Now, they're off to a great start. Are they really contenders? And I think you can trust that group. Seguin and Klingberg. These are guys that can help Jamie Benn be the player that he is.
Well, I mean, I saw Dallas play last night, and I've seen them a few times during the season. And last night, I mean, they lost to Toronto 4-1. They had 44 shots on James Reimer, and he played wonderfully. But the thing is, defensively, they're still – I mean, offensively, I think they're top echelon in the league. They're top 3 or 4 in terms of their weapons, in terms of their depth. But in terms of their defense, I mean, guys like Johnny Oduya, who's a veteran, he throws out the puck right in front of his own net on a backhand behind the goal line, things of that nature. I mean, you're talking a veteran defenseman, one of the guys who shouldn't be making mistakes like that. Their defense is not really that up to par with
But
their
it's better.
offense.
Their defense is better than it was last year, and they don't need the top 5 defense. If they're 15th or 16th in defense, they're going to win a lot of games.
Yeah, but we're talking about the playoffs, Dan. When teams need to shut things down. Teams with
I get that.
offenses, are not going to be able to score 4 or 5 goals during the playoffs. They're going to, they'll get their goals mostly on special teams and the occasional 5-on-5, but they're going to need to be able to shut it down. And what I saw last night is a team that still needs, I'd say, a couple defensemen and needs to listen to Lindy Ruff, who knows how to coach defense.
I'd say they have a bunch of guys that could really move the puck and skate well on defense, but they're not like a hard defensive team, and they'll probably need to get somebody at the deadline.
Yeah.
If they can, yeah. And there are players out there to be had. I mean, tonight they go back. They're in Boston, which is always fun. When Sagan returns to Boston. Some really good games tonight, actually. Washington is in New York, so against the Rangers. The Caps and the Rangers. That's, in my opinion, definitely the two best teams in the Metro, in my thoughts. But no offense to the Islanders there at all. But the Islanders, and because the Islanders are right there with them. But then I think the game of the night for me is Tampa and Detroit, out in Detroit, which is because I think that playoff series last year, in retrospect, was incredibly underrated. Like, it was one of those, as it was happening, it was okay. It was a good series, but then when you look back on the playoff series of last year, I think that might have been the best of them. That might have been the best series last year. What are your thoughts, Kev?
Yeah, no, it was a very good series. It was kind of a coming of age of Mrazek in goal.
Yeah.
Obviously it went 7 games, and the Red Wings could have easily won that series, and then obviously things would have been a lot different. The Red Wings happened to play their best game of the season earlier when they beat Tampa Bay. The problem is they're not playing very well right now, even though they won that last game against Ottawa. They were sloppy late and gave up a couple of goals, and they're really struggling to create offense. And I just wrote in one of my columns about that Dylan Larkin has become almost critical to the Red Wings' success. Like, when he's with the top line with Zetterberg and Abdicator, that line goes better. When they moved him, but when played him with Nyquist or Tatar, suddenly those two players have played better too. So he's really become. And they're not getting any scoring beyond, basically Zetterberg and Larkin creating it. Even Abdicator's kind of fallen off after a quick start. So they're struggling offensively, and the Lightning, on the other hand, I think have started to find their game. Johnson has struggled. Is not the same player that he was at the start of last season's playoffs. And Stamkos is doing fine. And the one thing about the Lightning that's different is that Stamkos has played a lot more at center than he is at the wing. Where in the playoffs they were starting to use him on the wing, and I think that's going to play a role in the re-signing of him, because he obviously prefers center. So, but this is a good game for sure.
It's got lots of potential. What do you like?
No, I was just gonna say I agree with Kevin that may be a determining factor regarding Stamkos re-signing in Tampa. I still think that the main determining factor is going to be the salary. I mean, if I would think that Stamkos is going to want to at least be on par with Taves and Kane, and looking at Tampa's salary structure and the number of players that are coming up for new contracts in the next 2 or 3 years, with Kucherov and Palat and Johnson and Hedman most importantly, I don't know if they pay Stamkos $10 million or $10.4 million or whatever Kane and Taves are making, how they can afford those other guys. I mean, they have salaries to shed, like Bishop and Braden Colburn and a couple others. But I don't know how they can pay Stamkos over $10 million and then be able to pay the other guys that are important for that team on par.
They won't have to pay all of them. I mean, first thing is, I've always told you I would invest in Stamkos and not Tyler Johnson. That's the first thing. The second thing is Drouin will still have a couple of years of his ELC, and he's got 6 points in 10 games, so that's good. You have Adam Earn in the minors. This guy could be very dynamic for them, and he's got size. And so at the end of the day, you've got to keep your superstars and your known quantities. I don't think Tyler Johnson's a known quantity, and I think Drouin's turning into what you think he would be. So I think a couple of those guys that you mentioned are easier to get rid of than Stamkos.
Well, Sidney Crosby took less than he could have to stay in Pittsburgh, and he took 8.7. Maybe Stamkos will take 9.1.
There you go. Yeah. Perfect. This is, of course, the triplets who many are saying are winning the internet with their sweater, with their Christmas sweater picture here.
Since I have Tyler Johnson on my fantasy team, I'd like him to maybe work on his shooting and not posing for pictures.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's fair enough.
I've got Doug Wilson I got to take, so.
Okay, go ahead.
Look at Kevin name dropping.
That's a good name drop.
That's a great name drop.
Just drop the name there.
Why don't we talk about what you posted in your blog, Ek?
Yeah, I mentioned this yesterday. I was working on a big rumor, and what it was this: the rekindling of an oldie but a goodie. the battle between. It's just amazing to me. Like, we've seen this so many times. The Dion Phaneuf to LA Kings rumors, and last year Dion Phaneuf to Anaheim was well. And I looked into that too, being Anaheim struggling. But actually, it does appear as if there's a long courtship that will eventually end in some kind of romance between the Kings and Dion Phaneuf. And it might not happen now, I was told, but the trade deadline's a good bet for this one. And the Kings, especially now that they have turned it around, are looking contenderish again. They're going to have to. They are. I think the belief in LA is they weren't as bad as they were at the beginning of the season. They're not as good as they were when they got better. They need a certain. They're somewhere in the middle, and they really need another defender still to even though they have a young defense that's doing very well right now. If you're going to go a long run in the playoffs, especially in the Western Conference, where you're going to have to face the Hawks, you're going to have to face the Blues and the Predators and all these teams. You're going to have to get something. So I think that Dion's got a really good shot at ending up there.
Well, I mean, Phaneuf has played under Babcock, has played pretty well. I mean, up until yesterday, he was leading the team in scoring with 7 points. But Morgan Riley, who I think is, he's taking over as the #1 defenseman in Toronto, and we all know that, Phaneuf being, I think, 30 going to 31, by the time the Leafs are ready to contend, that Phaneuf will be 34 or 35. So.
When they drafted Riley, that was the plan for him anyhow.
Right. It makes sense to jettison Phaneuf. In the next year or two, but I think the Leafs are going to want assets for him. They're not going to just simply trade him just to get rid of the cap hit. And I don't think they're going to retain salary, because I think they're going to have to retain salary for some of the other players that they've signed to long-term deals, like Joffrey Lupul. But the funny thing is, it was mentioned yesterday that Bob Murray, the Ducks GM, was in Toronto. With another Anaheim scout watching the Leafs play Dallas. Now, I seriously doubt that Dallas is going to be making any kind of deals right now with how well they're playing. And Toronto, I'm sure Lou Lamoriello is open for business. This ties into what you reported last week about possibly Frederik Andersen. And the thing is that they have a lot of RFA contracts coming up at the end of the year, Lindholm and Andersen being a couple of them.
Yep.
And maybe they think they're not willing to spend the big money to sign Andersen to a long-term extension, so maybe they're exploring that possibility.
Well, you can see very clearly, if things don't go well for the Ducks this year, that they do turn the reins over to Gibson next year.
Andersen and Boudreau, they're tied together.
Right. And Gibson is the guy. I mean, he's the guy. I mean, they've gotten big offers for Gibson. I've been told this, that they could trade Gibson tomorrow and get a really nice return. Gibson's a really sought-after goalie in the league, so they're not doing that. They're holding on to him. They see him as their goalie of the future. They're avoiding the temptation of playing him now, and because they played and they felt like they might have burned him a little too early, and they're trying to get that back, which I don't know if it can. It's one of those things. Can that be gotten back? I guess it can be, but.
But this Ducks start you can't put it on Andersen. He's been outstanding.
No, it's not at all on Andersen. But there has to be a team shift and a team mentality shift.
Right.
And while you can't put it on Andersen, talking to people out in Anaheim, they say you can't not put it on him as well. Like they say that
That's ridiculous.
He has not been, he has not made that big save when they've needed it.
They've scored 14 goals. 14 goals.
Oh, yeah, no, they're not. Yeah, but
the stats bear out one thing, and then
yeah,
what's being seen is that he's given up that occasional. Wow, how did he give up that one? That's at a bad time.
Like right after the Ducks were pouring it on, hitting posts, and getting all these possible chances. Those kind of goals, and those are devastating for a team. And it's not that it's his fault because they're not burying the goals.
That goal in St. Louis that he gave up late in the third period, where he basically kicks it in his own net, is symptomatic. But the thing is, I mean, there was some unsubstantiated report about the Leafs potentially trading a guy like JVR in a deal with Anaheim, which to me is totally ridiculous because they're going to get a lot more for JVR than a Jakob Silverberg and a Frederik Andersen. I mean, Frederik Andersen is going to get paid next year. That's the thing. If the Leafs are convinced that Bernier and Reimer are not the answer, which I think that they're coming to that conclusion, a lot of people have come to that conclusion a lot earlier. That they're going to have to find themselves another potential number one answer. And maybe they like Anderson, but I don't think that deal is something they make now because a good goaltender with the team that they have right now gets them wins. And I don't think that that's the mindset of the Maple Leafs. The mindset of the Maple Leafs is to draft in the top 3. So I don't think a Frederik Andersen deal is going to happen now. It might happen during the offseason.
I don't think Anderson does any better than Bernier does.
Oh,
I think Bernier is getting a really raw deal, to be honest.
Bernier is playing terribly right now.
No, I know he is right now, but I mean,
it might just be the culture and the situation he's in.
It's a little bit of. I mean, he's not a terrible goalie. I mean, Bernier.
No, right.
He could find a place in the NHL where he could be very successful.
Yeah.
Sure.
And why do I have to trade Van Riemsdyk? He's 26 years old.
Yeah, right. That's what makes no sense. I mean,
he's the one guy you have that makes
why
sense.
am I ever dealing him?
Right.
There's no reason for them to ever deal him.
Yeah.
What about Anderson in Buffalo? That seems like that.
No, that's the one that made sense.
That would make sense.
That's been the biggest rumor probably with Anderson has been.
But the one thing, and not to say that this is is determinative, but Linus Ullmark, the young goaltender that they called up, has played I think 3 of the last 4 games. Has played well in 2 of the 3. The organization likes him. They think he's a prospect. I still think that they want to give Robin Lehner a chance, and they might even want to give Ullmark a chance. I don't think that the Sabres are willing to trade a young asset to get Frederik Andersen. So I don't think they're going to go that way. But I think that if Anaheim didn't have a problem with trading inside their own conference, I think the Calgary Flames would be knocking on the door to get Frederik Andersen.
I don't think Anderson's as valuable as that. I don't think Anderson's going to require as much as we were talking.
I agree.
I think that he's looked upon as. He could be a flash in the pan type goalie. I mean, there's no guarantee that Frederik Andersen is going to be a goalie for the next 5 years starting in the NHL for a team. I mean, it's just to me.
And Anaheim might be looking just for a short-term scoring boost, which if it's Toronto,
they're just looking to change things. I mean, they need to make a change.
They need to change that locker room up.
And this is a change. I mean, for what it's worth. I mean, this is a change. If you're not going to change Boudreau, this is your change. This is your chance to do it. Let's do a couple cards before we leave today, as people are really into the Eklund hockey card game that we play. So the first one you have is a Maple Leaf goalie. Okay, I'm just going to show him briefly so you can't see, but he's a Maple Leaf goalie. And he played. This is another card that Kevin probably wrote the back of. We were talking about this yesterday, Kev.
Just give me the years. I'll give you the goalie because it's a Maple
1989 to 91.
Kenny Reggett.
No.
Alan Bester.
Bester. Yeah.
No.
Vincent Tremblay.
No.
Peter Ing.
Peter Ing.
Wow.
Peter Ing
was not a gerund, but actually his name, Peter Ing.
Peter Ing was part of the Glenn Anderson Grant Fuhr deal in 91.
So I've got my Peter Ing card. I'm going to put safely over there.
That was a great throw.
Nice shot.
It's like Letterman. He used to just throw the.
I know. This man, Kevin wrote on the back of his card. We think.
No, well, I didn't write that last. I think that was an Upper Deck card. I never.
This is the Top Stadium Club card, maybe, Kevin.
Yep, didn't write Tops.
Okay, well, someone wrote his best game is down low, whether on offense or defense.
Brian Marchment.
No, he's pesky in traffic and is skilled at getting loose pucks. I really need to bring my glasses down to read these things.
Yeah, please.
Because he's small, he'll find anyway. This player I believe played for the Red Wings, but in this picture he's playing for the San Jose Sharks, and he's an assistant captain. Kelly Kissio, very good.
Wow, that's great.
Former Ranger captain.
Number 11.
Excellent. All right, here we go. This is a current NHL coach.
Joel Quenneville.
Nope. Played for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and of course Dan
Bilesma.
Hartford Whalers.
Dan Bilesma.
No.
Okay, Hartford Whalers and Penguins.
Oh, you said head coach or assistant coach?
Current head coach in the NHL.
Played for the Penguins and the
This is the top Stadium Club card, which had the top skills ratings on the back. Remember that?
Tippett.
David Tippett, exactly.
Jeez, I had that one a minute before. If somebody would have. Never mind.
All right, so so we'll do two more. We'll do an Islander. Wow, I don't even remember this guy, Dan. So this is gonna be a good challenge for you.
I'll get you, Dan.
Although this guy, sorry, this guy shouldn't remember him. He played from 2010 to 2015 for the Islanders. Of course, I know him. I forgot him.
2010.
2010 to 2014 at least.
Kevin Poulin.
Islanders' second-round draft pick in 2008.
2008. Okay.
He was born in. He's a Manitoba kid.
Andrew McDonald.
He's a.
No, that's not a second-round pick.
You know, I hate when they don't put their positions readily available. I think he's a defenseman, right? I knew he was a defenseman because he wears a defensive number. Like when was the last forward that wore number 3? Can you remember the last forward that wore number 3? I can't.
He wears number 3. Travis Hamonic wears number 3.
That's Travis Hamonic. Yes, sorry.
There you go.
You said he played.
You said past tense. That's why.
Past tense.
I know. I was trying to throw you off.
Okay.
Oh, come on. Jeez.
All right, this is a really old Topps card here, okay? A Boston Bruin.
Bob Beers.
Boston Bruin, 1988 to 91. Overlooked when he first surfaced, this player led the NHL with 12 power play goals and finished second in rookie scoring. His father was a longtime line mate of Phil Esposito.
Oh, Ken Hodge Jr.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ken Hodge Jr. All right. Trying to make my basket over there.
Last one.
Last one. Here we go. I'm going to get a good one here. All right. Oh my gosh. We've had one of the things this box has is a really good collection of obscure Washington Capitals goalies, and this is no different.
Rob Lowe.
No, not Rob Lowe. No, he was actually way more. This is the Prospect, 1990. So he may have never. I don't really remember him playing for the.
It's not Jim Carrey, the Net Detective.
No, this is his last name starts with 2 consonants that are very, very rarely seen together. I'll give you that much.
that helps.
88-90. Okay, he had a star on his helmet.
Thanks.
Very memorable like goalie mask actually, like just a plain star on a white mask. I'll just show you a picture of him and see if you can get it from here. Look. So you see?
Jim Hrivnak?
Very nice. Jim Hrivnak.
Wow.
I remember him.
There you go. So all right. So yeah. All right. That's all the time we have for today, guys. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. I'm talking to you from my Elvis Presley microphone. Makes me feel like a real reporter now. Talk to you tomorrow. Good night, America. And Canada. Other places.